Once again, welcome to the next installment of the Maximum Performance webinar series. My name, of course, is Erik Janeczko. I'm the head coach and CEO for Maximum Acceleration, and we launched this series in October of 2012 to provide a level of high-caliber training and content to a large audience in a way that we could give you some hard impact ideas, concepts, and strategies that are really going to help you maximize your business growth over the coming months. And as a result, we've kind of developed a community of folks who come together on a regular basis for the purpose of growing and improving their skill and ability as a mortgage professional and mortgage advisor. And so today's program, I've asked our special guest, Mr. Jeff Mifsud, to join me for today's program. And the reason I asked Jeff is because Jeff and I have known each other for many, many years. We met originally, if you remember, sitting next to each other watching Ben Zander back in 2006 at the second year of the business plan conference series that was hosted by Loan Toolbox. Jeff and I became very good friends at that point, and have worked together closely over the years. For those of you who may not know, Jeff is one of the primary people behind the scenes who manages the quality of content and the unique, all of the faculty and a lot of the voice broadcasts that you hear through the Advantage Production family of content. Jeff's a key resource for that group, as well as has been, since, probably since the mid-90s, has been a full-time mortgage professional company. He has been a professional trainer and speaker and consultant. He wrote a healthy percentage of content in the Loan Toolbox that's related to the FHA VA guidelines, as well as a lot of the other stuff. In addition, Jeff has also been a top-notch originator, and over the years, he's developed a really hunger and passion for finding out and really decoding what it takes to create phenomenal levels of success. So, mid last year, Jeff introduced me to the fact that he had spent several months reaching out to and interviewing some of the best mortgage loan originators in the nation, focusing on the growth of what they did to achieve the best results. So what I've asked Jeff to do is to kind of share with us today what he learned through that series of interviews he conducted throughout the year, and share with us some of the key insights of what it takes to be a superstar originator in today's culture and in this environment. How you get to this phenomenal levels of performance that some of the panel of interviewers have achieved. So Jeff, with that, I'm going to let you take it and run with it for the time being. In fact, we're going to hide my webcam and let you take over and go full speed ahead here.
Okay, excellent. Erik, thank you very much. And thank you to all of you for taking the time out of your day to attend this webinar. We really hope that you walk away with some good ideas that you can implement into your business right away. Like Erik said, I spent time interviewing specifically 8 of the top MLOs in America. And one of the things that I've done as a trainer, and I've been training, since 1999, along with my origination practice. I stopped originating in 2010 because I loved being on the educational side of the industry so much. I just couldn't do both at that point. So I had to make a decision. And I just love being, helping people on a national level and keeping a pulse on what's going on in different areas of the country. Some markets are hot while others are cold. But one of the things that I've always done in my life, in my personal and business life, is model those who are already doing it, already doing what I want to accomplish. And that's why the tagline here of the best MLOs in America is the quickest path to success is to model those already doing it. We're going to talk about that because having been an originator, going through all the ups and downs, all the refi booms, all the, all the housing ups and downs, it really comes down to, how you are, how focused you are as an individual, and what you're doing on a daily basis to reach your goals. One of my first mentors in the business, in 1995, I got into business, and he was a really, really hard individual, but he was a great, great mentor. And he said, Jeff, if you want to remain in the business long term, you got to have purchase-based business. And here in the Michigan market where I live, you had to have purchase business. I know in areas like California and Florida and New York, areas where they have very high loan amounts where you can flip people for an eighth or a quarter and it makes a difference and it makes sense financially. Most of America is not like that. You got to have purchase-based business, and you got to treat the refinance boom business as more as a icing on the cake. That's how most markets are. There are some some businesses that are set up on a national level, and they can get leads from all over and capitalize on the different microeconomies. But by and large, my experience traveling around the country training loan originators is that they have to rely on purchase-based business. And so one of my favorite things as a trainer is to connect the best with those who want to get there or take it to the next level. So let's go right into it, and I'll share some ideas, and Erik's going to chime in at different points and to help to expound on some of the things that I'll be talking about. So I want you to understand that, a lot of times when people do interviews of mortgage loan originators, they're not really clear on who these people are. And everyone that I interviewed closes on average of 300 to 1,000 plus fundings a year. And that's amazing volume. And so this is the level of people, and they all started somewhere. They all started in the business with no business. It's not like all of these originators walked in having this book of business. They worked very hard to build the relationships. And what I want to do is share with you, some of the common traits and the themes throughout the interviews that I did. So the first thing here is time. Every person that I interviewed is very acutely aware of how they utilize their time. And one of the things that I saw with just the advent of computers, because when I got in the business, Erik got in the business, you had a phone and a desk, and you had to go out there and build relationships. One of the things that I found is the computers became more relevant and just an important part of our business. I always said that the computer killed the salesperson. A computer killed the sales professional, and because what I mean by that is what I notice is that so much time is wasted on the computer doing what I call spin tests, checking, processing loans, things that could be delegated. It's the computer can take people away from sales. So that's the first thing. Many of these originators, they don't do much work on the computer at all. They're relationship builders. They're out there prospecting. They're driving sales because every business depends on sales. Sales drives every business. If you're not bringing in the leads, you're not performing those behaviors that bring in the leads, then it's going to be very difficult to stay in business. But time is one of the most important things, and I want all of you to assess your business and your daily behaviors and how you're utilizing time and how precious you value time, because as sales professionals, that's all we have is time. So when someone is taking up that time, it's preventing us from moving our business forward. So it's first having an awareness. So that's what I want you to think about in your own businesses, is becoming aware of how you utilize time. Let's say for this next 3 days, or even next 7 days, keep a time log, and or at the end of each day, look back on your day and ask yourself, how did I utilize my time? The other thing is, the second point here is focus. These individuals are extremely focused on utilizing their time. Some use time blocking. Some have just objectives they want to achieve in that day, and they're not going to end their workday until they finish those objectives. So it's really important. Once you have an awareness, then you need to focus on what you want to accomplish on that day, and you have to have something to do every day. Jason Womack, who's a very big performance consultant and trainer, it talks about, at the end of each day, list your top 3 to 5 items that you want to accomplish the next day and make sure you do it. Jason Womack's very good at taking little items or big goals and breaking them down to little pieces. That's one of the things I learned from him. So it's really focusing on what you want to accomplish, what's going to get you closer to your goal. Because when we get the end of the 2015, we want to be able to look back and see, hey, we did it. We set out a goal and we did it. But large goals begin with the little things you're doing on a daily basis. And then it's execution. So once you have an awareness and you're focused on what you want to do, then you need to just execute. And you're going to have a lot of obstacles. You've all experienced this. And so when someone's going to come and they want to have a conversation, you need to stop and say, you know what, I can talk to you later. I'll be returning phone calls and having longer conversations later in the day. Right now, I don't have time for this because there's some tasks that I need to accomplish today. So you need to come up with those types of scripts that will protect your time and allow you to execute what you want to focus on that day. The next,
that's a great comment.
Yeah.
Let me hop in there real quick, Jeff, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Guys, one of the things that you may have not caught in what Jeff said is a big part of that is the focus and the execution all come down to high payoff activities. One of the things we found with our coaching clients is, and I'm sure this is consistent with all the top MLO interviews that Jeff has conducted here, is that when you're really keenly aware of the value of the time you're spending, that's when you begin to create the filtering of what's dollar producing activity versus non-dollar producing activity and compressing the low or no payoff activities down so that you can expand the amount of time you have available to focus on high dollar producing activities, whether it's partner development or new lead generation or lead capture and conversion activities. Those are the highest payoff activities that we do in this industry. So literally, if you think about it from the perspective, what does an hour of condition chasing really cost you? Well, every hour that you're chasing conditions is an hour you're not spending developing that next business partnership that could be worth 5, 10, 15 deals a year. So that's a consistent we see among all top originators that we've had the privilege and honor of working with at Maximum Acceleration and helping them evolve and expand. And that's a big part of what we end up working on a great majority of the time. I also love Jeff's exercise. If you didn't catch it, what we call a time tracker exercise. If you take those key, you take a yellow legal pad, or if you want, we have a tool we can provide for you that literally every 15 minutes throughout the course of your day, just stop yourself for 10 seconds and write down what did you just spend the last 15 minutes doing. At the end of a 2 or 3 day, summarize how much, or, just do some review and identify how many hours did you spend developing new leads, marketing, and business development, how many hours did you spend converting leads that were already there, and how many hours did you spend doing everything else, and then realign where and how you focus your time to control. Proactivity is the number one key to success. Reactivity is the number one killer of efficiency. And I'm sure that's something that Jeff, had shared. I know he shared behind the scenes with me that that's something that definitely is part of the solutions or strategies for all top originators.
Erik, that's excellent. And I really want everyone to reach out to Erik and get that tool, that time tracker tool, because, there's a little voice inside of some of you out there that doesn't want to do it. And there's a fear of doing that. And that's exactly why you need to do it. You need to overcome that fear, because the fear is that you're going to realize what the stark reality is that you're wasting a lot of time. And how much more could you be doing? The fact that you have that fear of doing this type of activity and tracking your time is the proof that you need to be doing it, and you can be doing more. And if you get over this hurdle and you become focused on your time, you're going to be amazed. I wrote an article for National Mortgage Professional Magazine some years ago, and I talked about this concept that I was teaching at that time. It's called the 360 degree concept. It means if you take 3 days a week, 60 minutes of your time prospecting, what could that do for your business? Because I know many of you out there are not doing 3 hours a week of prospecting. You can turn your business 360 degrees and explode your business really by, if you just put even just 3 hours in. I mean, many of the people that I interviewed do way more than 3 hours a day. It's built into their system. So start somewhere. But the first thing you got to do is get this tool from Erik and track your time so you can see, hey, what more could I be doing? And you won't believe how powerful that will be just by having that information and it'll give you the confidence that, hey, I can do this, I can do more. And I just recommend that you really do that. So let's talk about work ethic right now. It amazed me just how hard these people work. And one of the things you'll hear me say in some of the interviews is that, one of the greatest things about the mortgage industry is that we have pretty much complete autonomy over our time. And one of the worst things about the mortgage industry is that we have complete autonomy over our time. And it just goes from the last slide, is how we're using our time. These people come in and they work hard every day. Some of them work 7 days a week. Other people, like to have a little bit more balance, but you'll hear from them. But the one thing is that is very clear, and it's a common trait among the best, is they're punctual. That they have a they have a daily schedule and they stick to it, and they're prompt, and they're gonna come in the same time, and they're often. There's one Scott Evans from CMG Financial. He comes in. They have sales meetings like 7 o'clock in the morning where he's teaching his loan originator scripts, and they work on sales scripts. He takes people right off the street with no mortgage experience, and he trains them how to use scripts, how to go out and build relationships. I think it's the greatest advantage to not have any business and don't really know anything about any of the software yet, and you're coming in and your goal is just to go out there and build relationships. I mean, I think that that's an amazing thing, but the many of them are in there very early. And the last point I have here on the slide is that they play. They do take time for themselves. They reward themselves for their efforts. And the harder you're working and the more you're focusing on doing business generating activities, like Erik said, the more fruits you're going to have from your labor. I mean, it's just the way it goes. If the harder we're working and we're working in a smart way, that the fruits will come from that labor. And so you got to build time in to take care of yourself as well. Next trait that I've noticed is how tenacious these originators are. They don't like to lose. They like to be the top in their market, and they know who their competitors are, and it's their outlook. You see this rock climber. I picked these pictures with purpose, and a rock climber has to be acutely aware of every move that they make, and so that's how these individuals are. The mortgage greats have a goal, and they're very tenacious in reaching their goal. Just like this rock climber, his goal is to get to the top of that mountain. Well, you set goals. You may set a mountain for yourself, or maybe set a little hill, whatever it is. You need to have the proper perspective, and the outlook is knowing that there are obstacles, and that's the second point here. You're going to have obstacles. You're going to have people coming at you wanting to take your time, and you just need to be tenacious to get through those challenges. And they're all aligned with this perspective that, hey, I have a goal to reach, and I take my business very seriously. And at the same time, it's not like they're being rude to people when they want to impose on their time, but they're in alignment with this. They're congruent with their goal. I mean, they're just like a ship when it's navigating through the seas. That they have to have all their points right on target, so they're going to reach their goal. They're off a little bit. So it's the same thing here, that they're in alignment with what their goal is, and they never lose sight of it. And they're very tenacious and continuing to reach their goal. Let's talk about thoroughness. This is also another. What I found is with the best in America is that they're either the type of individuals that are very thorough themselves, and if they're not, then they have an assistant that can come and fill in. What I mean is that specifically we're talking about the documentation and being complete and thorough with the interview. One of the things that's really, really important in having a good process and a good experience for your clients is taking complete and thorough information up front. I can't tell you how many loan originators I meet that take the worst 1003s. They don't use the 1003 as a tool for having a very deep understanding of what that client's credit profile is. And so if you don't have this system in place and you're getting a lot of bumps in processing and underwriting, then you got to go look at the beginning. One of the things that my early mentors said, that they always say, it's garbage in, garbage out. That's what they would always say. And so my early training was focused on taking a complete application. We couldn't even turn in applications because it had an individual that would review them for thoroughness before they would go into processing. So that's a very, very good quality control measure that if you don't have that in your system, you need to implement that. Because especially if you want to do the level of volume and take it up a notch. I mean, say you're doing 5-6 a month right now and you want to take it up to 10 to 15, you can't afford to be dealing with conditions that could have been taken care of right at the beginning by putting together a complete package. So the 1003 is really a tool that you need to do. The other thing it does is it's really a marketing piece. That's the way I've always looked at the 1003. It's the most time you'll ever spend with that client. It's a time to build the relationship with your client. That's all you have. the real estate agents have a huge advantage over you as the originator. Why? Because they're out there showing homes. On average, a realtor may spend with the buyer 20 to 25 hours with that buyer. That's a lot of time to build a relationship. But as originators, there's only an hour and a half if it's more of a more complicated file. And on the phone, it's even harder to build the relationship. Some people use Skype, and I think that's a great idea because you have a face to the voice, and you can build a deeper relationship that way. But if you can do it in person and you do more local business, I advise everyone to get the clients in the office. It allows them to see you and put a face behind the service. So the second point here is inquiring. So with the 1003, you have to ask a lot of questions. The better questions you ask, the more you think like an underwriter, the more success you're going to have in underwriting. It's that simple. Being a former FHA direct endorsed underwriter, I had received my training from the Detroit field office here, and that's how I got just such amazing training in how to put together and package FHA loans. And as an originator, this is a huge selling point going into an office when I was trained as an underwriter. But one of the things we're trained as underwriters is how to ask a lot of questions. So you need to put on your underwriter cap and think like an underwriter. Because if you're going to have the question at the application, the underwriter is for sure going to have a question. And no one knows the file better than you. So it's all about how you document the file. And that's the final point here about under thoroughness is you need to document. If there's a question about something, it may need a letter and it may need supporting documentation. Put that in there. Don't leave questions to the underwriter. You want to paint that picture very clearly for the underwriter. And if there are any gaps in information, note that in a file. So that thoroughness is really, really crucial because these originators that are writing 300 to 1,000 loans a year, they can't afford to have bumps in the road in the process. So they make sure they're very thorough up front.
Definitely. And I will tell you guys that, you will reach a point where you grow your business where you may want to look at. And one thing Jeff mentioned very early into this part of the conversation is recognize that we all have strengths and weaknesses, right? And the idea here is we want to maximize the use of our strengths and build systems or team around us that mitigate some of our weaknesses. So if naturally you're somebody who's very social, very outgoing, but, mentally somewhat disorganized and you don't naturally have that high degree of attention to detail, recognizing and understanding that and learning that about yourself can be one of the most valuable opportunities. And one of the things we often do with a lot of our coaching clients is we start with what we call a DISC profile. And Jeff, I'm sure you're aware of that as well. And a lot of these top originators will use that DISC personality profiling as a method, not only recognizing and learning more about what they are good at and accelerating their use of that, but also what they're not so good at and what they need to build into systems that support them or team that support them. And it's not all about hiring an assistant. At first, it's about creating an external tool that gives you a fail-safe. Like, for example, one of the things we do with a coaching client is we have a couple of different tools that help them on the front end do a very thorough job. We call them the safety questions, things you may not necessarily think about. The other thing we do is we always look at, what are we really trying to accomplish as an originator? Really, if you want to look at it from the perspective of, think about your role as a litigator, an attorney who is trying to prove that your borrower has the willingness and ability to repay the loan at the end of the day. That's part of our job, is to do the best we can at presenting a strong case, and all the documentation has to support the information on the 1003. And we need to be looking for where are the gaps, where are the questions, and where are the things that, an underwriter would say, I don't know, there's some doubt here. And so, if we prove our point up front by presenting a strong case that beyond all reasonable doubt, our client does have that willingness and ability, and that the documentation supports that, and we've explained why we're using the income or asset calculations that we are, that's a big part of it. But keep in mind, if you're doing 1,000 loans a year, if you're closing 1,000 loans a year, think about how many applications a month those individuals are taking, right? I guarantee you they don't have enough time in themselves, so they've had to build a very efficient system to bring in that information, to gather that information accurately and timely, and that their team can help them in that respect. So that's kind of one of the next areas we begin to grow is, when we start looking at what are the success secrets of a top MLO. Well, one of the things that they've all had to realize at some point in their growth curve is that, we have a tendency to believe in this industry that people buy us. That's a fallacy. The reality is they buy the experience we have a reputation of creating. So if we've effectively duplicated that experience, then we can scale to whatever level of business we want from that point. And that's what these guys have begun to realize.
Excellent. Okay, let's talk about knowledge now. One of the things that, I want to apologize that the numbers are off in the lower right. I just noticed that here. I think there are 11 slides though. But one of the things that is also a common thing is their level of knowledge. Extremely, extremely knowledgeable of guidelines. One of the things you'll hear me say many times, and I've said this for many years, is that there's gold in the guides. I've always been a big proponent of understanding the guidelines. Because I got into business before DU and LP, so you had to think like an underwriter. The better you were at packaging loans and telling the story of the borrower when there was all manual underwriting, we've kind of come back to that for the most part in terms of validating the findings. But you have to understand the guidelines. And I can't tell you how many thousands and thousands of dollars these originators make because loan originators at another company couldn't do the loan because they weren't aware of a guideline. It's very, very common. So remember, there's gold in the guide. So many of these originators will put time into reading guidelines. And I can remember the first guideline book that I read was, 500-page Chase mortgage underwriting guideline manual. It was enormously thick, but you just start at one page and you just keep going. You don't have to do every page. You just focus on the credit, cash, capacity, and collateral, the 4 C's of underwriting. That's what I focused on. But it's understanding guidelines because it's those anyone can do a DU approved eligible file. Anyone. But what makes the difference in a top originator, an expert originator, as opposed to a mediocre one, is taking that borderline deal that got rejected in underwriting, and it only got rejected because the underwriter wasn't aware of a particular guideline. That's how brilliant and knowledgeable these originators are, is that they often have more knowledge than the underwriters. Because the originators that have been in the business a long time, many of them have been in the business longer than many of the underwriters. So there are a lot of underwriters out there that are not as knowledgeable about particular guidelines, and they're not salespeople. They don't question things the way originator does. An originator wants to make that sale. They've put their name on a pre-approval. People have gone out and bought homes and negotiated contracts based on their pre-approval. So they're going to us as sales professionals, we're in the habit of not taking no for an answer and going in. And so that's the attitude that many of them have. If there's a rejection, they feel it shouldn't be. They'll go in and quote the guideline, show the underwriter, and turn that file around. So that you got to invest in yourself by putting the time in to learning the guidelines, and set a little goal for yourself. Once a week, over a cup of coffee, cup of tea, whatever beverage you like, sit down, get some guidelines, and start reading the guidelines. And you'll see. So there's some over the course of a year, you'll save five or six deals. And what are those five or six deals worth to you? So so that's one of the second point here was challenge. I kind of already mentioned that, but they challenge underwriters when they're going to reject a file. And the other thing is that they promote this in their relationships, is their level of knowledge of guidelines, and they'll talk to real estate professionals and CPAs about cases that they had where other companies couldn't do what they did because of their level of knowledge of guidelines. So it's extremely crucial that you put the time in and you stay on top of the guidelines and look for some of those unique areas.
Definitely.
Okay, let's talk about relationships.
Actually, Jeff, I'm going to
Yeah.
interrupt for just 1 second. One of the other things you'll realize about that knowledge is that, at some point we all recognize that the top performers in the world, and this is something that's consistent with everybody I've had the honor and privilege of working with, is that we recognize that we don't know what we don't know, and we seek it out aggressively. And I, that was something that I saw as something very consistent among all of these top MLOs that Jeff's interviewed, in that they really do have that thirst and that passion for knowledge. I mean, I remember, when I started out on my own as an originator in the earliest days of my career, I had many of you know my story and what happened with my very first job, which ended after 6 months because that first boss was all refi based. It was a real tough time to figure out how to sell mortgages when it was a purchase environment. Interest rates had shot up almost 2% in the last 2 months, and here I am out on the street as an originator. And I figured out very early on that if I didn't seek and have a passion for going to find out, I mean, I got to the point I remember in my career where I was either gonna figure it out or I was gonna have to quit, because I was about 30 days away. I was less than 30 days away from losing my house, in all honesty. And so if I didn't find a way to find somebody who knew how to do this thing and would teach me how to do it pretty quick, I was going to be dead in the industry. And I think that all top originators have recognized and understood that there is a source of knowledge and information about how to do this thing at a much bigger level and how to get there quickly, that is available, and we seek it out aggressively. So anyway.
Excellent. Relationships. In my experience traveling around the country and speaking to loan originators and looking at those who have wildly successful mortgage practices, I found that the most content originators that are on this level are the ones that have relationships. They have relationship business. They do relationship marketing. I've also done training in plenty of businesses where they all do all internet leads. And I can tell you there's a huge difference in terms of quality of life and contentedness with and happiness being in the business between someone who sits in a cubicle with a headset for 10 hours a day, as opposed to the person that's going out and having lunch and dinner and going on trips, ski vacations with their real estate agents. I mean, what would you rather have? Would you rather sit in a cubicle or go out and enjoy yourself? Now, some people are cubicle types. They're not. They're more introverts. They don't want to be out there doing that, and so they can enjoy that. But by and large, I found that the happiest loan originators are the ones that have relationship-based business, and they hold these relationships in a very, very high esteem. And many of them have personal relationships with their agents. Not all of them, but many of them do. They have a lot of integrity with the relationships, high levels of integrity. I think it was Mike Mina that I interviewed. I think if I recall correctly, he has such a high level of integrity that there was an error made on a transaction, and it was he does business in California, so we're talking about high volume amounts, and in terms of making errors, they're larger financially because of the level of, if you're off on the interest rate, it's going to mean a lot more in terms of what the difference will be in terms of yield spread or whatever it is. But he came to the closing with $10,000 or plus to make that deal work because of what he committed to, and that hurt. But he had such a high level of integrity that he was able to do that. And he's an amazing originator. But what he told me is that individual ended up referring him all these different relationships, which made him, I think he said he's over the many years, because of that, he's probably net, tens and tens of thousands of dollars from that one individual. So the way he looked at it was a $10,000 investment for $70,000 or $80,000 gain or the numbers, but it was some hugely disproportionate number, and that's all because that individual that he came to the table and did what's right. He repaid him because he recognized the type of person that Mike was, and that's the type of people he wants to refer to. So, I mean, not everyone has that much money to come to the closing with, but when you're writing that many deals, that's a small price to pay for future gains and future strong and valuable relationships. Because, like I said, sales drives any business. The more people you know, the more people you're going to have to refer to you. Now, one of the things that many of them have is a system. It's the final point in this slide, a system of following up with relationships, of keeping in touch with them, whether it's automated, whether through email or it's automated direct mail system, or it's pop-ups in your calendar follow up. And one of the things I found is many of them, for their top relationships, is they do a combination. They do some email, some direct mail, some and some phone calls, and then personal meetings with them. And every relationship that you have that is a referral source, you can gain other referral relationships from that referral source. I used to do a lot of cold calling when I first got into business, but as my relationships built, I stopped doing cold calling because I would do referral, relationship marketing. That's what I call it. You have one relationship, say, hey, who do you know that in your office that could, also benefit from my services, and that person knows and trusts me so much that they're going to refer their other agents to me. And that's how these individuals work. So there's no reason you need to cold call. You work with the existing relationships that you have, and you just leverage those relationships. It's a very common theme with all of these individuals, which leads really to prospecting. So relationships is one thing, but prospecting is really more specifically focused on leveraging those relationships. And you got to be they're really specific and targeted on who they want to prospect with. I've made this mistake myself, and many originators have when they're kind of starting out and they're not used to identifying who the agents are that are writing the business. And so they go for the low-lying fruit and the easy relationships to make, which are those agents that are just standing around with nothing to do. So, but it's a place to start. If you're not used to going in and meeting with real estate agents, that is a good place to start, because you can practice honing your message and perfecting what you want to convey, and instilling confidence in the agent and why they need to do business with you. So it's a good place to start if you don't have a lot of real estate agent business, is to start with those who don't have a lot of business. There's some also that some I found that they don't focus on the agents the largest volume. They focus on many of those who are hard workers in the real estate industry, and they're up and coming. And these MLOs will help them build their business and educate them on what other top agents do to build their business. And so they develop a working relationship, and it's reciprocal. It's very natural that when you give to someone that they're going to want to give back. So that's another common theme. And they put high value on their prospecting time. We talked initially at the beginning of this call about prospecting. Well, they value this time for prospecting, and they build it into their business. So as a call to action for all of you, if you're not prospecting, you need to start. You need to implement it. And there's no one better that can help you than Erik Janeczko, because he's got the systems and he's got the experience in helping you achieve what you want to achieve. And if you're not prospecting, then you're not building relationships, not bringing in new business. So if you want to take your business to the next level, I really suggest working with someone like Erik to build prospecting in your business. And one of the biggest things is being accountable, which takes you to, you want to say anything, Erik?
Well, yeah, actually I was. One of the things I also noticed in, kind of looking through and reading through some of the notes from some of the interviews, I can't wait till I can actually find the time to sit down and listen to the entire series, which I'm excited about. But one of the things I heard is a very common theme. You mentioned a few slides ago the concept of alignment. One of the most powerful catalysts for growth in any of our clients over the years has been a really burning passion to serve. And so as a result of who are we looking for? Are we looking just for the next loan that's going to be another paycheck, or are we looking for somebody who has a real need or opportunity to benefit? And what we find that makes it a lot easier to prospect is when we stop thinking about us from a selfish perspective on the taking side of that relationship, and we shift our thinking to the giving side of the relationship. Look, guys, in any market in the United States, you'd be hard-pressed to find a period of time in history where homes have been more affordable than they are right now. Right? I mean, as far as how much house for the monthly payment now. It's the best home affordability we've ever seen in our entire lifetimes and many generations prior. I mean, you have to go all the way back to the late 40s to find housing as affordable as it is right now. And unfortunately, there's a ton of people out there who really have no clue how much buying power they really have in today's market. So when it comes to prospecting, one of the things that we find as commonality is that very narrow focus and that very aligned with what our goals and what our passion is makes it a lot easier to pick up that phone and make those calls because we know we're doing something to help somebody that they don't know they could potentially benefit from. And that has been a huge advantage for many of our coaching clients with being able to make that shift because, sometimes people hear the word prospecting and it scares them to death because it feels selfish. If you could take it and shift it to that, who needs me to hear this message?
Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's a very, very good point there. So let's talk about action now. It's one of the common themes of all the mortgage greats is that they take action. They decide what they want to do. They make a plan and they just go. And it really ties into some of the other points we made and the traits that they all share is that so what in your business do you need to decide on? What are you not doing? So much of it is deciding what you want to do. I remember here in the Detroit metro area several years ago, there was a huge billboard campaign with the Marine Corps, from the Marine Corps. And they had a picture of a Marine with a serious look on his face holding a sword next to his body and with his Marine hat. And it says at the bottom, we don't take applications, only commitment. And so that's what do you need to commit to in your business? Because it all starts with what the commitment is internally. It starts with what you want to accomplish in your own mind and what your desire is. You need to decide, and then you need to write the plan, and then you need to just go. And that's something else that Erik can help you with is deciding what you want to do. Some originators, they create these, crazy plans that they'll never be achievable because they're not aligned with reaching that goal. You got to start somewhere. And I think the best place to start is somewhere really small. Create these little goals so you can develop the confidence that you can do something. So whether it's, starting with calling 2 real estate agents a week or 2 accountants, whatever it is, the beautiful thing about the mortgage industry and developing referral-based business is that you could pick the type of people you want to do business with. I happen to love doing realtor business. I always had a great time working with real estate agents, and that's where I did a lot of business because I just developed a rapport with them, and that's why I like doing business. Other people like CPAs, other people like financial planners. I did a lot of builder business also, and so whatever you want to do business with, and who are the type of people that you like to do business with, go after those individuals, but start somewhere small. And you just got to, develop that small plan, and then you just got to go.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, as Jeff has just shared, kind of the 6 or 7 key strategies that were consistent among these best MLOs that he had the opportunity to interview. And again, he obviously gleaned a wealth of knowledge that, we could give him 5 hours at the microphone. He could probably still keep going as long as we wanted him to. But we wanted to open this up and let you guys chime in and ask some questions about what some of the experiences were and that kind of thing. So there's the first question that I wanted Jeff to address quickly, and Jeff, just so you know, I'm going to be switching around the back end stuff here in just a second for you as you answer this question. But one of the big questions that came along is, okay, so here's a list of 8 interviews you did with MLOs who are all in the top 100 loan officers in the country, ranging in production from 300 to 1,000 units a year.
But actually, Erik, I just want to clarify. I think every one of these is the top 25 in the country according to Scotsman Guide. Wow. So it's not even the top 100; it's the top 25.
Not even the top 100.
Yeah.
Wow. So out of like 380 something thousand licensed originators or MLS IDs, MLS independent unique identifier numbers in the United States, these guys are the top 0.01%. So here's the thing. I mean, and here's the question that was posted that I would like you to answer for me, Jeff, if you can. Okay, great. These guys are these 30 plus loan a month originators. I'm a loan officer who's doing 3. How do I make another step forward? What's the best next thing? Was there any information you gleaned from these interviews that would be, great advice for that 3-month MLO to start moving in the right direction?
You know what? That's an excellent question, and that's exactly all the content I've ever produced in terms of training is taking the information from the best and helping those that are not on that level take it to the next level. And these traits that I shared with you are traits that you can apply to your own business. And if you listen to these interviews, you are going to see what they do on a daily basis. What are their daily disciplines? And you just model that. And one of the things I have a note here is that everyone out there has unique qualities, right? You're an individual. So one of the things you need to do is what I say, model and individuate. You're not going to, it's not imitating, you're modeling and you're incorporating some of the strategies that they use and you're going to individuate. You're going to make it an individual, subjective, and make it your own. So there's no way someone's going to listen to these interviews and not come away with something that they can do and apply to their own business. It's impossible because that was the question. This question is exactly why I produce these interviews. Because as an originator myself, how can I relate to these individuals? I will never achieve what the level of loans that they're doing. And I recognize that because many of them are in markets where the housing market is just booming and there's tons of transactions on a monthly basis. You go into some of the, Kansas, Missouri, Detroit area where there aren't as many transactions and the volume, the dollar amounts are a lot lower. But you know what? It all starts with relationships. And that's one of the things and I specifically focused on purchase originators because I want to show originators who are writing those 3 to 5, 5 to 6 loans a month and what they need to do to take it to the next level. And part of it is, when you listen to all, different trainers throughout the years, a lot of times you're not going to hear anything new. It just comes and many of you know what you need to be doing. It comes down to developing a plan and having someone that can hold you accountable. If you look really deep down, you know what you need to be doing, whoever's asking this question, but why aren't you doing that? I think part of it is that we don't have someone that can hold us accountable. We start a goal and then we stop. We start a goal and it's just this cyclical, the cyclical nature of forming a goal and not following through and achieving that. And I think part of it is that people don't have coaches. Many of these top MLOs had coaches, and it paid back. I can't tell you the great investment that it is because it gets you to where you want to go. So that's how I answer that question. It's impossible to listen to these interviews and not come away with one thing. Like for example, Paul Volpe, he closed over 1,000 transactions a year. And one of the things that I saw that anyone can do is that whenever he takes a real estate agent out, and we talk about this in the interview, he'll ask that real estate agent to invite someone else out. Hey, it's a free lunch. And the best agents hang out with the best agents. So just that one idea alone. So you're leveraging that relationship. So these are the types of ideas I try to bring out in the interviews, things that can be easily applied to anyone's business. It's just that they're doing it on a much greater scale. They have, instead of just a few agents, they have many agents, and they're getting that. That's what I really try to do and focus on these interviews is to bring out some of those daily disciplines that can be applied to any business on any level, regardless of what the volume is.
Definitely. Well, guys, there's a couple more questions in the interest of time. There's many of the biggest question I think that the most common question being repeated in the scroll here is a question about, okay, how do we get access to these interviews? So let's address that real quick here just before we jump, and then we'll get back into some of the Q&A. Jeff, I know you have a fairly tight time schedule, but if you can hang out with us a little bit longer. If not, guys, keep posting those questions, because if nothing else, I know that Jeff has already made the commitment that we'll get this information to Jeff and he can answer a lot of those questions for you. But Jeff, why don't you share with us a little bit about how people can get access to this interview series, if you wouldn't mind?
Well, the best way to get access is Erik's going to either send you a link or he'll post a link on your website, and you click on that link and it'll take you to a page where it'll tell you more about it. I have a couple of videos on there, and one of the things that I really love, and I spend a lot of time and money producing this just because I think it's better educationally. I mean, I grew up in an educational environment. My dad was a teacher, so I'm really into teaching and helping people learn information. And, not only do you have the interviews, but you get access to, we had all the interviews transcribed. And it's so revealing when you are actually reading the interview. And because so much more comes out when you're reading it. Because one of the things that I've found just as myself and training people doing webinars and teleconferences is that when people are listening to something, they're distracted by other things. They're doing text, they're doing email, they're sometimes pausing, taking a phone call. Well, when you're doing those things, you're missing some key items. So that's why I really encourage everyone when they, not only listen to the interviews, but print out these transcripts, take them home. And when you're sitting in before bed or wherever you're relaxing, read one of these interviews over the course of an 8-week period. Read one a week. They're pretty long when they're transcribed, but I guarantee you that you're going to you're going to have serious takeaways, of things that you can apply to your business that can make a difference.
Definitely. Guys, and, if you think about this, it's, unlimited access for a year, $97 to get access to these, this entire series of webinars. It's a money back guarantee that Jeff has offered up to a year. You don't like it, you don't think it was worth the $97, and actually you can save an additional $20 if you go ahead and jump on the bestmlos.com website. Go ahead and go there, and there's a little preview video that Jeff has posted. You can use discount code POWER20. That's going to get you access to the entire series of the recordings, and then you can jump from there. A lot of what we've been talking about throughout today's program has been how you create leverage. And, leverage is based on this simple concept of a bar and a pivot point, right? If the problem is if I'm not using that tool correctly, it gets no value. But when I make a simple adjustment and I position the tool properly, 100 pounds of force on one side gives me 1,000 pounds of lift on the other. And when I'm using those tools and strategies effectively and appropriately, that's where I'm going to get the results. So not only, taking advantage of the opportunity to hear what some of these top MLOs are doing, what are their unique strategies, what are the specific tactics and approaches that they apply, that we're going to make sure we get an answer to a couple more Q&A questions here in a bit. But, the practical reality is that these are what the real success the superstars are doing. And it's from there, once you begin to identify that, that's where you're going to get the best overall results, when you begin to apply that knowledge. And also having access to the transcripts is huge, because during the course of the interview, I'm sure that many of them shared some of their specific talking strategies. For example, that specific script is going to be found in the transcript, and you'll have the slide bar on your thing to guide you to it. By the way, there was another question posted about what was that discount code. The discount code is POWER20. POWER20, and of course the website is bestmlos.com. If you go to bestmlos.com, you can go ahead and click and register right there. All right, a couple of quick questions that we wanted to make sure we were addressing. Okay, so one of the questions was about what is the typical makeup of the loan officers' teams? What's the smallest volume / team size for these MLOs that you interviewed?
The smallest team size is probably 3 people, and those are people that were writing, approximately 300 loans a month. The people that are upwards, 500 plus. They have teams of between say 5 and 7. Those weren't specific questions on the size of their team, but that's what I took away from many of these interviews. And and some of them are more involved with borrowers, and some are not. Some are just like their initial phone call and they hand it off to someone else. But the one thing that's clear is that they utilize their team very well, and many of them went through the ups and downs like everyone does building a team. So it's really important that if you are at that point where you want to build a team, interview those who've already built teams. One of the things that I've found, and that's how these mortgage greats were willing to do these interviews, is that they want to contribute. People on a high level like that, they're not afraid to give. They know that their businesses, comes because that they're blessed and that they're working hard. So I would, before you do any hiring, and you want to interview people that have built teams before. We do. There are several interviews where we do talk about teams and how do they utilize teams, and listen to those sections. But I recommend interviewing people, because the last thing you want to do is make a hiring mistake, and exactly. Then you have to. It's like the worst thing. But so just like I say, the quickest path to success is to model those already doing it, and that applies to anything in your life, really, including hiring someone. So you want to model those and learn from those who've already made the mistakes, so you don't have to make them.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, guys, that's a big part of what we do at Maximum Acceleration. We actually have a patterning system with job descriptions and personality profiles and all that kind of stuff. We do a lot of work with taking people to the next level. Because, and by the way, one of the biggest indicators, another question that was kind of similar in nature, but which is how much volume do you need to warrant an assistant and to do all of the non-money making activities that we've talked about earlier in the program. Well, a lot of that depends on a couple of key indicators. One is look for what we call peaks and valleys syndrome. When you start doing 8 or 9 loans one month, followed by 2 or 3 the next, and it's that big seesaw jumps in months, usually that's a big indicator that you've got the relationships and the strength of network in your community to generate those high volume months, but you don't have the capacity to finish those high volume months. And so that's what ends up creating that peaks and valleys type thing, because you end up getting more leads, in all honesty, that you could handle timely, and they fall off to somebody else in those huge busy months because you just don't have time to do the upfront work appropriately. So that's another key element. If you guys are interested in going a little deeper into that, we can talk a little bit more about either the group or one-on-one coaching programs here in just a bit. I'll share with you how that kind of works. A lot of that is just coming back down to that concept or idea of creating that outside perspective. I mean, if you look at this example for a moment, what do all the greats in the sports worlds have? The Michael Jordans, the Wayne Gretzky's, the Tom Brady's of the world, the people who are at the top of the top in their career fields. Well, if you look at it, they all had somebody who cared as much about their own success as they did, and in many cases more so. The people who were there to help them recognize what they couldn't see for themselves, to challenge them, to point out errors in their strategy or approach that were just under the surface. It's so easy that we all get so busy being busy that we find it difficult to, or we fail to take a step back and look at from the outside perspective what we're really doing on a daily basis, and if we are working smarter versus harder. You guys have heard all the cliches and analogies, but the fact of the matter is we can't afford to dismiss what we hear all the time, because it wouldn't have been repeated often enough to become a cliche if it weren't fundamentally true. Well, the value for a lot of these people is having that mentor, that advisor, that networking group, or that masterminding team around them. And in many cases, they become that for a lot of the professional, business partnerships that they work with, where they really do provide that outside perspective, incredible knowledge. They help us see our world from the outside in, and vice versa. They help us, we share our goals, and we talk about the strategies we're going to apply to achieve those goals and the timelines that we set and expectations for that. And they're there to hold us accountable and keep us on track as well. Just to sidestep for a moment, in 1998, Brigham Young University did a research study about what it took to turn ideas into action. Well, you guys can read the details of this, but basically the study found there's 4 key things they need to do. 1, you have to have a specific goal. 2, you have to have an action plan to complete that goal with deadlines for the different milestones in that goal. 3, you need to share that action plan and deadlines with somebody you trust to hold you accountable, and ask them to follow up with you regularly. You do those 4 things, you have a 95% chance of accomplishing your goals. And all of these best MLOs at some point in their career have had that kind of a mentor, advisor, masterminding, development partner type relationship that has helped them steer the course of their career to the level that they've all achieved. And we find that that's no different with the clients that we've had the opportunity and privilege and honor of working with over the years. So if you're interested in finding out more about the different Maximum Acceleration programs that we offer, we have a library of home study courses that are available, which are virtual coaching programs. For example, the recent Performance Power Up Conference series is now available. I'll share with you about that in just a minute. We also have group coaching programs. The next group class starts up in the first week of February. And of course, we offer one-on-one personal coaching. The best way to find out about getting access to those programs, if you're interested, the best way we found to identify what coaching could look like for you, what is it, and how does it work, is to just experience it. We offer what we call a no-cost, no-obligation strategy session. We'll go deep on one particular issue or topic to help you build an action plan and a set of accountability targets for how to complete it. And then, of course, during part of that conversation, we'll help you identify what, if, and how coaching may make sense for you and what the next steps would look like, if any. If you would like to take advantage of that no cost and obligation strategy session, you can certainly post the best phone number and email address in the Q&A so that our team can get a hold of you to schedule those appointments. There's only a handful of them available each week, and they are filled on a first-come, first-served basis. So if you do want one of those strategy sessions, go ahead and hop on the Q&A and let us know that you'd like the strategy session with the name, phone number, and email address, and we can go from there. Secondly, don't forget that a lot of the great tools, ideas, and resources that you're going to get access to are going to come out of this library of content that Jeff has so graciously offered, through the dozens of man hours of work it took him to be able to put together this best MLOs in America audio library and transcriptions. I can't highly recommend, if nothing else, think about it. How many meals out is that to come up with $77 for a year and a no money back, 100% money back guarantee for up to a year? At the end of the day, if you get one additional loan over the next 12 months out of that thing, that's like, an 800% ROI on your loan, even for the loan officers who make the least amount of money. That's like 50 bips on a $50,000 loan commission. But like I said, if you would go ahead and check out the program that Jeff has posted for you, I think you'll get a lot of value out of that program. In addition, like I said, if you are interested in taking it to the next level and finding out a little bit more about the group or one-on-one coaching programs available, go ahead and post if you'd be interested in one of those strategy sessions, and we'll get you set up and rolling for that. For those of you who are interested in a more expansive library, the Performance Power Up Conference, which Jeff was a big part of helping us pull this off back in December, we did a 2-day planning conference we called Performance Power Up 2015, Ideas to Action. And over the course of about 15 hours of programming, 19 different speakers, some of the best business building tips, ideas, and strategies in the industry were shared over the course of those 14 hours. And at the end, we help you build an action plan to take your ideas and get them into action. So you walk away with a step-by-step growth plan for 2015 to make it your best year ever. If you guys are interested, you can go to the mxlcoach.com/shop website. You go mxlcoach.com, click on the shopping tab. That'll take you into our shopping cart. Click here, and then you can jump to the DVD digital video box sets tool. You can click on the Performance Power Up. The regular price on this is $497. That was the regular ticket price that people paid to attend the 2-day live web conference. Literally 14 hours of programming over 2 days in mid-December. We did this program. If you'd like access to the video library, the entire 14 hours of programming and the tools to build that action plan that we walked you through during the Ideas to Action workshop on the last day, you can actually, if you over the next 24 hours, the next week and a half, use discount code on demand, you can knock an additional $200 off of that entire 14-hour training library. Only $297. That just gives you kind of a comparison of, Jeff is offering you at basically a third the price of what our Performance Power Up Conference is, access to these eight interviews, all the transcripts and everything for the Best MLOs in America series. For that, I can't see why that would be a bad idea. It almost becomes it's like I don't know. I remember having a conversation with one of my coaching clients immediately after the Performance Power Up conference, and I'm like, can you really afford not to? I mean, that's like 2 meals out with your wife, and you're over $70, over $80 anyway.
Well,
for the
idea going out to eat.
Well, I guess that's true. Well, I don't know. I took my kids to McDonald's over the weekend, and it was $33. So, what do you get? Anyway, but I'll tell you what, guys, this has been a great conversation. Feel free to continue to post those questions in the Q&A here. Jeff and I, Jeff, I don't know what your time schedule is. I've got about another 5-10 minutes. We can hang out, maybe circle back through a few of these questions. Okay.
If people are still on, I'm more than happy to answer the questions. Just want to clarify that we don't have the website on here. Erik, is there going to be a link on your website, or do we send to people to bestmlos.com? That's the website, bestmlos.com.
Correct. bestmlos.com. We posted that in the chat in the Q&A. Again, it's just www.bestmlos.com. The red letters up here, that'll get you access to that website. You can sign on and register directly from there. All right. Looks like we've got a couple of people commenting. Looks great. Love the content. Looking forward to getting listened to them. Let's see. Let's circle back and see if there's any other questions here that we want to make sure that we can cover today. There was one question about PowerPoint and audio and video for today's program. Yes, folks, we did record today's session, and the PowerPoint will be available to all everybody who registered. Just give us a little bit of grace. There's several hours worth of behind-the-scenes work that has to be done to transcode the video and format it for streaming and replay, and as well as formatting the PowerPoint and everything to be ready to broadcast. Usually it takes our team a couple of days to get that pulled together, but by end of business Thursday, watch your email inbox. You should receive an email from us with links to some of the tools that we've talked about today, the links to the PowerPoint, as well as the video link that you'll be able to go back and replay this program. So yes, okay. So that was one of the questions in here.
Erik, speaking of PowerPoint, a couple other bonuses that I have for signing up for the Best MLOs in America is I produced 2 PowerPoints to help MLOs get into offices. So these are PowerPoint presentations that are turnkey. You just print out the slides, take them into an office, and you can present, have 2 presentations just ready to go. I found that was the easiest way for me, just being, an educator type of individual. I had no problem ever getting into real estate offices because I always provided value. And so you'll find that those 2 PowerPoints have valuable information that real estate agents want. And one of the biggest challenges that real estate brokers have is providing valuable training to their agents, because many agents with the downturn in their real estate, they can't afford to bring in, trainers and pay for them. So as an originator, I kind of filled that need, and I would always produce PowerPoints and go in and that's how I built my business. So I have 2 PowerPoints in there that MLOs can use to get into offices easily.
Why didn't you say that like 20 minutes ago? I'm kidding. That's awesome. And I'm very excited to get a look at those as well, Jeff. And we'll I'm a huge fan and advocate of what you've done here. And I hope to see this community of yours, this Best MLOs in America community, grow and evolve over the coming years, because I think it's a tremendously powerful concept and idea. I think it's something that our industry is very hungry and primed for, and I think it has a great opportunity to become, a great gathering place for folks to get powerful content, ideas, and strategies that are going to help them take the business to a tremendously bigger level. All right. So again, just real quick, guys, there's one last thing I want to encourage all of you to do. At the end of the day, and this is often how I wrap up pretty much all our webinars, but one of the things I want to challenge you all to do is to take advantage of the time that you've invested here today. At the end of every webinar, I always give you a bit of an action planning. I wouldn't be doing my job as a coach if I didn't. Because here's the practical reality. You've got some great ideas and strategies now that Jeff has shared with you over the course of this program here. Practical reality is ideas are useless if they don't get implemented. They have no power unless we actually take action with them. So what has to happen here is step one, before you've got to take time to create an action plan. I mean, let's face it, you guys have been on the call for a little over an hour here now. Without taking another 30 seconds to a minute here to create an action plan that has a high probability of getting implemented, you just basically wasted an hour. Not that you haven't gleaned some ideas, but those ideas are only powerful when you take action. So the first thing I want you to do is, what's the number one idea you want to implement immediately? Okay. 2, what action steps do you need to take to make sure that becomes a part of your daily business? So, like, for example, the daily prospecting, or the time tracker exercise, or the focus on identifying strengths and weaknesses using a DISC profile. What is that next action that you want to make sure you implement? Great. 2, when are you going to have that action completed? Like, for example, if you want to start, if you want to start the time tracker exercise, action number 1 is email Erik for a copy of the time tracker study, or my team, and we can get you a copy of that relatively quickly. Step 2 is, work with the time tracker exercise and build external reminders that help you remember to print it out first thing in the morning and start using it throughout the course of the day, so that you're keeping it fresh, and every 15 minutes you're stopping. And I don't care if you have to pull out a little egg timer or one of these little stop clock thingies and set it on your desk, for 15 minutes to go off every 15 minutes and remind you to jot down what you spent the last 15 minutes doing. That becomes a functional action step. 3, of course, is when are you going to have that action completed? Obviously, it's a 3-day exercise with about a 30-minute to an hour debrief. With that in mind, you need to plan out that by the end of the week would be your target deadline. And of course, 4th is that accountability. Who is going to hold you accountable to making sure that you complete those action items? And the practical reality is, it's kind of like what I call the running buddy concept. That Brigham Young study and the power, 95% chance of completion if you do these 4 things. Now, practical reality is, think about the running buddy analogy. January 1st, I set a New Year's resolution of wanting to lose some weight. So let's say I, went out jogging January 2nd, January 3rd, January 4th. Maybe I overdid it. January 5th, it's cold and it's wet and nasty outside. Every muscle in my body aches, and I really don't want to go jogging. So I hit the snooze button, roll over, and never go back out again. How different would that be, however, if my neighbor said, hey, let's do this together? So it's January 5th, and it's cold and it's wet and it's nasty outside, and I really don't want to go jogging because my entire body aches. But I know my buddy's going to be on my doorstep at 5:30 to go jogging. How likely am I to go? Practical reality is, it's so easy to break the promises we make to ourselves. It's inherently more difficult to break the promises we make to other people we know, trust, respect, and appreciate. In many cases, that's the ultimate difference to whether ideas actually get implemented or not. So I don't care who that person is, find that accountability person, share your action plan with them, and ask them to follow up with you regularly, holding you accountable to that implementation timeline. You do that, you have a 95% chance of following through on the ideas that you've gleaned from today's program. Again, a huge thank you to Mr. Jeff Mifsud for joining us today with the program and the insight he's been able to share with us. Encourage all of you to check out bestmlos.com and go ahead and sign up and get, like I said, no money back guarantee purchase. So if you aren't happy with after you've listened to the entire interview series, I know Jeff is a person of incredible integrity and a definite man of his word. That I have the highest belief that if you're for whatever reason unsatisfied, I guarantee you that he'll honor that request. So, what can you lose? What do you have to risk? Go pick up the interviews, learn something, implement something, and take your business to a completely different level this year. With that, Jeff, any final words you'd like to share with our group today?
I think we said it all, Erik. I just wish all of you success in your mortgage practice, and I hope to be a part of it.
We wish you all the greatest success, and we look forward to seeing you on the next installment of the Maximum Performance Webinar Series. Make it a great week, everybody.